times. I hope everyone is keeping safe and keeping well, and family members are all well. My name is Sandip. I'm one of the family at Virayatan SCVP, and I'm going to be your host this evening for the lecture. Before we commence that, today we've got two lovely young kids who are going to start off the evening with the Naukar mantra. So if I can call upon Gina and Yuvraj to recite the Naukar mantra for everyone. Welcome, Gina and Yuvraj. Welcome. Over to you.
Namo Arahantanam Namo 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 Sitanam Namo 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 Ayariyanam Namo 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 Uvajayanam Namo 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 Loye Savasahunam Namo Loye Savasahunam Eso Panchanamokaro Sabba Pavapanasano Mangalancha Sabbesin Padamam Have Mangalam Padamam Have Mangalam.
Okay, absolutely wonderful, Gina and Yuvraj. So without muting your computers, just give them a big round of applause, as we would do in our assembly as well. Yuvraj and Gina are both part of SCVP Jain School, which runs every Friday evening at Avanti School. We run 6 classes there and also an adult class, and I'm delighted to say the school has now been running for almost a quarter of a century. We're one of the longest serving Jain school in the UK, and I'm very proud to be part of that organization. Normally, we would have these same classes at Avanti School, but due to circumstances, we're now having these classes virtually. So there are children's classes running as well as the adult classes as well. This evening, it is my pleasure to introduce Sandip bhai, one of our adult class lecturers, teachers, who will be giving a talk today on chapter 3 of the book, Walk With Me. This chapter particularly resonates with Virayatan, particularly with Taima and the Sadhvijis who run Virayatan on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, over to Sandip bhai.
Pranam and Jai Jinendra. Sandip bhai, my namesake, talked about Walk With Me. For those who are new to this series of lectures, or who might have tuned in perhaps last week or the week before, and you're wondering what is happening. So the way we've designed these virtual classes is that we will be looking at Walk With Me, which I'll tell you in a short while. But we are also mixing it up with some of our most important sutras and explaining to them. So I explained the Naukar Mantra Sutra, and last week Hinaben explained the Logos Sutra. And in future, I think after a week or so, we are going to have the Namuthunam Sutra. So these are all very important sutras which Jains recite, and therefore we are explaining them and we are interspersing with Walk With Me. Now, Walk With Me is a book written by, well, it is based on a series of lectures that Acharya Sri Channaji gave in Rajgir, and it has been obviously put into a book form with the help of Mr. Vastupal Parekh, who is a very eminent scholar. Walk With Me is unique in the sense that it is looking at Mahavir Swami's last life before he achieved Nirvana, without from Gautam Swami's perspective. And each chapter has got something really relevant and of social significance to say. And it is really well written in very simple language, simple English, and it really is very, very worth reading. So what we are doing is we are taking each chapter as we explain and we go through it. So today is my turn to explain chapter 3, and let me share my screen with you. So let me start the slide. So today we are looking at chapter 3, as I said. Now, I have a few questions for you before we go on to the actual chapter. One is women cannot attain salvation due to the fact that they are born as females. What do you think? Women are subordinate to the males in society. They cannot recite religious scriptures. Do you agree? Women cannot lead. They do not have the capacity to reason and make correct decisions. And this is from a Chinese poet, Fu Husuan, 3rd century BC, has remarked, "How sad it is to be a woman. Nothing on earth is held so cheap." Do you agree? And these questions that I want you to answer are in relevance to today's times, as well as what was happening in the past. So please, if you have a moment, and I'll give you like a couple of minutes, if you can put on your chat your answers or what you think, you can summarize and answer all 4 of them at one go. So if you can please do that. I just want to know your opinion about what you think is women, because there is a lot of controversy about what women can do and should do.
So Sandip bhai, things like disagree, false, no, women are mentally and emotionally extremely strong, totally disagree with all the statements, all 3 untrue. One says no, 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 no. In this era, all are equal. Also, all soul attains salvation. All souls are equal, does not matter. Don't agree with any of them. So I think you can get a gist of the kind of sentiments that are out there.
Yeah, so most people feel that they don't agree, but this was not always the case in society. So I want to go back to history. So we know that during the Vedic period, when the matriarchal system prevailed, women dominated society. So there was a time when women were leaders. They were not only leading the whole social structure of society, but they used to lead in a lot of religious and sacrificial rites as well. And men actually were not allowed to participate in them. They also participated in religious ceremonies. They had their right to property inheritance. Further, women, the bride had the right to choose their husband, the groom herself. So, you know, we read Ramayana, we read Mahabharata, and previously they used to have what is called a bridal ceremony, where the bride would actually choose a husband, and a lot of grooms would present themselves in the court, and they would show their valor, and then the bride would choose the right husband. But in course of time, as a society developed, men gave up hunting and tending cattle. The pattern of society changed, giving rise to the patriarchal system, which is what we are following at the moment, by the way. We are following the patriarchal system where the men dominated individual property, developed, and class division came into being. So this is where then the classes came in, and the classes were not what, so Rishabdev Bhagwan had set up the 4 classes of the rulers, the warriors, the traders, the people who worked on the farm, and such like that. But the class that came about was a slightly different class. So I wanted to say, so the post-Vedic times, there was a sati pratha. So sati pratha is that if your husband died, basically you throw yourself onto the funeral pyre and you burn yourself. So that was there, and that at the moment, by the way, is still being practiced in some of the very rural parts of India. Condition of widows. So widows, once their husband died. So effectively, the theory was that you should die before your husband. If you died before your husband, then you were called fortunate enough. You were called Sobhagya. So you know, when a couple gets married, and at the end of the wedding ceremony, I think the Maharaj or the priest asks 4 ladies to whisper something into the bride's ears, and what she whispers is Akhanda Sobhagyavati. So what that means is that, you know, may your husband live as long as you live, kind of thing. So the whole idea is that you should not become a widow. You should die before your husband. And because if you became a widow, your condition was even worse than the untouchables in India at the moment. And it still is practiced in some of the ancient, in some of the more backward societies, where widows are treated as worse than dirt. There were child marriages where women were married off. There is also the point that if you had a girl you did not want, you would actually drown her, and they would call it dudh piti karinaiki. So they would drown her in a big urn of milk. There was a parda system. So the women had to basically put a large, I do not know if you remember that previously our women used to put their sari on top of their head, and they had to bring it right down so that their face is covered, especially when they talk to men. Women used to be sold as prostitutes. There was female slavery, female infanticide, which I just mentioned, and a lack of a lot of things. And this is what women faced. So like Sudras, the women were debarred from the right of initiation and investment with sacred thread. So, you know, this was the Brahman. So that what they call is Janoi. That they were stopped from having that. They were considered to have no business with sacred religious texts. It became the practice to consider women as inauspicious, and people were asked to avoid seeing women. Even in today's time, you know, I do not know if you know that in our religious ceremonies, the man is called Pradhan, okay? And for example, if you were to do a pratikraman where women and men are together, and I witnessed this, I'm telling you this from my experience, it is always a man who recites the sutras. Even though women might bid, you know, in our tradition, women would, people would bid for a particular sutra to be recited. And even if women bid for the sutra, they would have to actually name a male person to recite the sutra. So women, as long as men were present, women are still not being allowed to recite certain sutras. Even though if they were to do pratikraman on their own as women, then they can. But when they are in mixed company, then they cannot. So it became the practice to consider women as inauspicious, and people were asked to avoid seeing women. So this was the original caste system. So the Brahmins were at the top, the Kshatriyas were on the hand, so they were warriors and rulers. The Vaishyas were the farmers or traders and merchants. The Shudras were the laborers, and Dalits, outcasts, street sweepers, latrine cleaners. And women, by the way, came below the Dalits, especially widows. So the challenge to orthodox Brahminism stand against women's spiritual pursuits came from Shraman traditions such as Buddhism and Jainism, which admitted of women's right and equality to seek salvation, even making institutional arrangements towards this. The central defining ideals of Jainism are the twin principles of non-attachment and non-violence. It comprises a single-minded pursuit of severe individual asceticism and avoidance of harm to even the tiniest of living organisms. So this is the Jain Dharma, the Jain Dharma which all the Tirthankars have set out, and Mahavir Swami reiterated that ahimsa paramo dharma, and that in order to achieve salvation, you need to detach yourself from the world. Now, this was Mahavir Bhagwan's most radical social change. So what can you all answer on your chat what this change was, please? What can you see from this picture?
So Sandip bhai, you can see the answers. The women could become nuns, women and men participating equally, all are treated equally, sadhu, sadhvi and lay people.
Yeah. Yes.
Some with
So
nuns and shravik, fourfold religion, sadhu, sadhvi, shravak and shravikas.
yes. So this was called the Chaturvid Sangh. Now Mahavir Swami was, if you study Mahavir Swami's, and please, those who are listening to me, do try and study the 27 lives of Mahavir Swami, because it will tell you how to live your life in today's world. For a lot of people, Mahavir Swami, for me, he's a personality who was just amazing personality. And his foresight, his leadership skills, his ability to identify people's problems was so vast and so immense. And one of his most astute things that he did was this Chaturvid Sangh. And this was a direct contradiction to the society, the Brahminical society, which was prevalent at that time, as I mentioned, where women were not allowed to do so many things. There was this horrible caste system where certain people could not, and the Brahmin priests used to suppress people, used to make their lives a misery. And it was amongst this that Mahavir Swami, the reformer, was born. So he was such a great reformer, and he reformed society by creating this fourfold, or what we call the Chaturvid Sangh. So the Chaturvid Sangh was made up of Shravak, Shravika, Sadhu, Sadhvi. So Sadhvi and Shravika played an equally important role as the Shravak and Sadhu. And all, whether you read the Uttarajyan Sutra, you read the Acharang Sutra, you read the Sutra Krutang, they all mention in anything that they took, because there's a lot of code of conduct for sadhus, and they specify specifically that it has to be sadhu and sadhvi. It just doesn't mean sadhu as in the male aesthetic. So he established this Chaturvid Sangh, which was his most radical social change. And he did that deliberately to allow people of any community, any caste, or any sex to come and enter and seek salvation. So the Chaturvid Sangh was a class, so there was a class of female ascetics, pious female lay followers, sadhvis and shravikas, respectively, is not only distinctly identified, but is placed on an equal footing with the two male classes, sadhus or munis and shravaks, that is male ascetics and pious male householders. However, Digambar Jains do not believe women are capable of reaching enlightenment or being fully fledged renouncers. Digambar Jains believe that you, as a woman, you can do a lot of spiritual work, but you would still need to take rebirth as a man, and then you can seek or achieve nirvana. Shwetambar Jains believe that women are eligible for renunciation, that women are capable of reaching enlightenment as women, and therefore that women can serve as religious ideals and role. Now, the question here that I'm going to ask you is that we have a Tirthankar called Malinath. Now, according to whatever books you read, Malinath was a woman. So, if Digambar Jains do not believe that women could achieve enlightenment, how do you think Malinath achieved enlightenment? Anyone? Right, so I can see some of the chats which are coming through. And people are saying, sorry, I'm just trying to open my chat and it's not opening. But maybe, but people are saying that she was reborn as a man. And that is correct. So Digambar Jains believe that Malinath Prabhu was reborn as a man and then she achieved salvation. Whereas Shwetambar Jains believe that she was a woman and she, in the role of a female, she achieved salvation. The reason why I'm saying all this is because in Jainism, there is a list of 16 satis. Brahmi, Sundari, Chandanbala, Rajimati, Draupadi, Kaushalya, Mrigavati, Sulsha, Sita, Subhadra, Shiva, Kunti, Pushpachula, Damayanti, Prabhavati, and Padmavati. Now I'm going to stop sharing the screen just now, and I wanted to share a YouTube song, if it is possible for me. I don't know if you are able to see this, or am I able to share this? I do not know. Hold on 1 second.
So Sandip bhai, we've had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I'll wait until you try and find the YouTube, or shall I fire a couple of those?
No, do fire, because this might work or it might not work.
Okay, so both, so we've had a question from Krutiben, why women are still not allowed to recite sutras? And also a comment to say, because they think women have not shredded enough karma, that's why they can't be tirthankars until you are born a man. So I'll let you think about
that again, please.
So because they think, so it's a comment, because they think women have not shredded enough karma, that's why they cannot be tirthankar until you are born as or reborn as a man. And
Yeah.
the first question was why women are not allowed to still recite sutras.
So, for example, I'll give you an example. The Kalpa Sutra, which we regard, which is read during Paryushan times, traditionally used to be only recited by men. And even now, in large congregations, I do not see any ladies reciting the Kalpa Sutra when men and women are present. Also, during Pratikrama, I know for a fact that they say Manso Pradhan Kevai. That means the man is more superior to the woman. Okay. Now, I think that is changing, but in traditional India, I think if you were to go to India and attend Pratikrama, then obviously they still follow some of these traditions. I personally think that, you know, when we unfold this evening's lecture, when it unfolds, you will see what I'm trying to say. But for the moment, I personally think that there shouldn't be a reason why women should not be allowed to say any sutras, because the sutras are connected with the soul. And if we believe that all souls are equal, then it should not matter, you know, who is reciting these sutras, provided you do it with a purity of heart. Now, as far as karmas and women being born are concerned, I think that that is wrong. I think that means you are trying to say that if you've done horrible karmas, you're born as a woman, whereas if you've done good karmas, you're born as a man, and that is not true, because everyone suffers, you know, their karmic consequences, men and women. So, you know, you cannot distinguish there. Now, if you have a moment, if you can please, I think you can see this video, but I just wanted to play this.
Sandip bhai, there is no sound.
Oh, sorry. Oh. Sorry. Let me stop sharing.
Sandip, when you share, can I share voice?
from your computer to all.
Okay. Sorry, let me try and do that again. I'm very sorry. I'm new to this technology, so.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I'd like Hina to just unmute. She's asked a question about joint pratikraman. So Hina, if you just want to comment on say something on the comment you put in.
Jai Jinendra, Sandip bhai, it is when we have joint pratikraman in the Sthanakvasi hall, even though men and women all are doing together, women are allowed to recite the pratikraman if they wish. Just to share the knowledge, like
Yeah. So I think that I think certain traditions do allow that, but I know that in the Shwetambar Deravasi pratikramans, you know, I think in India and in other parts of the world, they still, I think in the UK, I think that's changing, but in other parts of the world, they still do not allow the women to recite if men are present. It's not that they don't allow, but it's not accepted effectively, or it's the opportunity is not given.
I just thought I'll share with you because.
No, thank you. No, that's fine. I don't think I'll be able to share the screen because I wanted to talk about. So there is a Sola 16 list of 16 satis. Hold on. Let me share my slide screen then. Sorry.
So Sandip bhai, while you're doing that, one final question was, do Digambas think that not all souls are equal, men and women?
They feel, Digambas feel that women have done more karmas or more negative karmas. That's why they're born with women, born as women. The whole thing comes behind the whole purpose of menstruation, the fact that you know, there is a lot of life which women's genital organs harbor, and therefore they are not as pure as men are. Now, this is partly from Digambar, but I think it is partly also, it has come from societal norms which were being practiced at that time. And unfortunately, you know, when we talk about Chandanbala just now, you will see that despite all these changes that Mahavir Swami made, it has not sort of come through all the generations, because even at this moment in time, if you are a Sadhviji, you still have to be under a sadhu. Even though he would be a novice sadhu, you still have to be under a sadhu. So Sadhviji's status is not as equal as we would like to. We would like, as far as sadhus are concerned, a sadhvi is not equal. Now, the exception to the rule I will explain later. There are a few sanghs which have been set up, a few movements which have been set up where this is not the case. Sorry, so let me go back. So the list of 16 satis are, and Chandanbala is amongst them. And what Mahavir Swami said was, gender or caste does not determine a person's greatness. A soul becomes great by its actions. So Mahasati Chandanbala occupies so there is something called the Sola Sati Chand, which is a whole narrative of the 16 satis, whose names I just showed you. And unfortunately, the YouTube video, I couldn't share the sound because it's such a beautiful video. Besides being learned, virtuous, and devoted to penance, she became the first Sadhvi of the Sadhvi Sangh, founded by Bhagwan Mahavir, and thereafter she enjoyed the honor of being the first head of the Sadhvi Sangh of 36,000 Sadhvis. Her life sketch conveys a message that virtue is greater than caste or creed. So, Now we come to Mahasati Chandanbala, or Mahasati, as she is called Ajha Chandana. Ajha means honorable. Okay, so when you say Ajha, which means honorable, somebody who is honorable is called Ajha. So this is a photo picture of Chandanbala's life, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar, but I just wanted to share her story. Before I share, I need to switch on. I can see what I'm doing. So Chandanbala was born, she was born as a daughter of Dadivahan of Anga, and her mother was Dharini. She, at the age of, I think she was about 10 or 12, the neighboring kingdom, King Shatanik, attacked. Now, Shatanik and Dativahan were brothers-in-law, so they were both sisters. He attacked in Vasumati. So she was, Chandanbala was actually called Princess Vasumati. Now, what happened was that when he attacked the kingdom, King Dativahan's army was defeated, and he had to escape to save his life. Now, in the meantime, what happened was that he ran away, and one of the generals came and told Dharini and Vasumati that, come, I will take you in because the enemies are coming and we better run away. He obviously had an ulterior motive. And what he did was he actually took the mother and daughter into the jungle, and he tried to rape Dharini. And Dharini told Vasumati that please run away. And Vasumati didn't want to run away. She was obviously crying and very distraught. But Dharini basically killed herself with a dagger. And in the process, the warrior, the general said, "Oh my God, now what do I do with this child?" You know, he took her, and then he was riding, and then he said, "No, I'd better hide her, because if the enemy or somebody catches me, then they will execute me." So he dresses her up in rags, and he says, "Okay, what I shall do is I'll take her to a slave market and sell her there and get the best price possible." Now, can you imagine the situation? So here you are as a princess, you are living in a palace, and overnight your circumstances change. Your mother is no longer there. You basically become an orphan because you do not know where your father is. And here you are in a market. You are young. You are about maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, and you're being sold as a slave. And this is what is terrible about this whole thing, that she was being put up as a slave, and the highest bidder was a prostitute, because in that slave market, women were being sold as commodities. I do not know if you heard of Nal Damayanti story, where King Nal had to put up Damayanti. She's also one of the satis as a slave, because that was a vow that he had taken, and it's a really an interesting story to read. So what happened was she was being sold, and the highest bidder was a prostitute. And Vasumati said, you know, if this happens, what shall I do? So she's actually said that I will not, and she had that inner strength. So she said, I will not be sold as a prostitute. Now, there happened to be this Shet who was passing by called Dhanava, who happened to be passing by, and he looked at somebody shouting, and he says, who is this person shouting? And he walked closer, and he saw that there was this girl who was standing there, Vasumati. And he looked closer, and he realized that she must be of noble birth, because her features seemed noble, and that he said there's probably a story behind why she's in the slave market. So he outbid the prostitute, and he basically took her. Now he asked her that, what is your name? And she would refuse to tell him her name. If she had, she would have revealed that she was a princess of Koshambi, and that, you know, and he would have reunited, but she did not. In any case, he said, no, I'll take you home. So he took her home, and he said, you will be like my daughter. But Chandanbala said, no, I will need to work for my living because you've been so kind. And he told his wife, who was called Mullah, that I brought somebody to help you. And Chandanbala basically settled into the household. She was basically cooking, cleaning, you know, everything that she was doing. But she was very endearing, and she was very loving to everyone. So, you know, everybody started to like her. Everybody, you know, she settled in very well, and she actually made people's lives quite pleasant by being around with them. In the process, what happened was that Mullah and Vasumati grew, obviously, and she turned into this beautiful young woman with lovely long tresses of hair and really pretty. And Mullah became jealous. And Mullah started thinking that maybe my husband's niyat or you know, his good intentions might change, and he might start liking her. So what he did was, Dhanava said he had to go out of town on some business. And so he went out, and immediately he chopped all her hair off. Basically, he made her bald. She tied her legs with anklets. She put a gag in her mouth, tied her to a pole, and took her to the dungeon and left her there. And then Mullah went promptly with her maidservants to her father's house and left her there. So for 3 days, Chandanbala was in a cellar in the house, no one in the house. She was hungry. She had not eaten for 3 days. And she was obviously gagged and tied up like a prisoner. What happened then was that Dhanava came back from his trip, and he walked into the house and he says, is anybody there? Is anybody there? Now, can you imagine that what must have gone through, you know, I mean, to think that here you are a princess and see how your circumstances are changed. Can you imagine her state of mind that, you know, first of all, she was a beautiful princess. She was being sold as a prostitute. And then she was taken to this house where now she's been treated as a prisoner. And Dhanva came and he said, where is everyone? And he obviously knocked and knocked, and then he heard this muffled sound from the basement. And he went there and he saw this Chandanbala tied up, and he obviously untied her, but he could not untie her leg anklets because they were made of metal. And he removed her gag and he says, what happened? And Chandanbala says, I do not know. Now, Chandanbala was puzzled because initially she had been ill-treated by men, and here it was a woman who was ill-treating her. So she, you know, can you imagine a state of mind that you are young, you are innocent, and you do not know why people are doing these things to you. And she said, I don't know where Mullah is gone because she tied me up, and all the servants and everybody's left. So he said, let me get an ironsmith to untie my, untie your, remove your anklets, you know, your metal things on your legs. And he said, but let me get you some food because you haven't eaten. So he tried and he found urad, or arad as we call in Gujarati. And he, you know, gave her these lentils. And then he went off to look for a blacksmith to remove the anklets. Now, that is where I pause the story. Mahavir Swami, in the meantime, had been obviously wandering around as an ascetic, and he had taken a vow. He had been fasting for 5 months and 26 days, and he had taken a vow which was the most, it is called an abhigraha, but it is the most peculiar vow that he has ever taken. It's called a very, very bhayanak vow, in the sense that it was a vow which was very difficult to fulfill. So his vow said that he will only take food from a princess, from somebody who's of noble birth, somebody who's had his head shaven, who is wearing anklets, whose one leg is in the door, whose one leg is out of the door, who has tears in her eyes, but there's also joy on her face. You know, she's dressed in rags. Oh, he had about 13 different abhigrahas that he had taken a vow of. And obviously no one could fulfill that vow. So he continued fasting. Now, can you imagine this person, Mahavir Swami, what a person he was? That, you know, to take this vow in order to find yourself, to find salvation for your soul, you are trying to do this is what is called parisaha. You know, a lot of sadhus go through this. These are all the hardships that they encounter. And this was even more onerous hardship where no one could satisfy it. Now, why do you think he would have taken such a vow? That's my question to you people. So if you want to use your chat function and try and answer, please.
So he said a few comments coming in. He knew or foresaw this to shred his karma.
Yeah. So yeah, that's correct. So what he did was, Mahavir Swami was remembered that he had certain faculties, even though he had still not achieved salvation. He had not achieved Keval Gnan. He still had certain faculties. And one of the faculties was that he could see what was happening. And he knew that this thing was going to come. Now, why if anybody, I think Vinod Bhai is in, and if Vinod Bhai can unmute, Vinod Bhai also had something to say on Aja, which is from the word, Vinod Bhai himself will explain to you what Aja means. But if Vinod Bhai, if you know, one of the things I could not find out was why did Chandana suffer so much? What karmas had she done in order to suffer so much? But yes, Mahavir Swami must have known. So Vinod Bhai, if you want to unmute and please say, you know, if you know something more on this, please.
Sandip bhai, thank you. You are doing a wonderful work. First of all, this Aja. Aja is a Prakrit word. In Sanskrit, we call Arya. You know, and for men, it's Arya, and for women, it's Arya.
Aja.
So Arya Chandana means Aja Chandana. But it's a simple thing anyway, it doesn't matter. The way I understand Chandanbala's story is that he must have visualized that there is a girl somewhere who is in trouble. And it must be his mission to rescue her. So his abhigraha was about rescuing that girl. And he had visualized sort of a, you know, dream or something, that the girl is standing at the doorstep. He has got some Aradna Bakula in her hand or everything. And then he will go there and he will rescue her. What happened after 5 months and 25 days, he actually saw her. And almost everything was what he had visualized. Yeah, except for one thing. There were no tears in Chandanbala's eyes. It doesn't mean that Mahavir Swami wanted her to weep or to cry. But at that second, at that moment, it didn't click that this is the same girl. And once she started crying, and he turned back slightly and saw Chandanbala's face, and suddenly realized that, oh, this is the girl. I had seen that in my vision, and this is the girl I must rescue. So,
Yes.
well, this is my understanding, and that's how I interpret. But
No,
thank you.
no, that's very good. Thank you,
Thank you.
Vinod Bhai. But I just wanted to, in this book, Walk With Me, it's so beautifully written. So if I may read out, everybody was worried because Mahavir would not eat. People were counting the days that went by without food for Mahavir. 5 months and 25 days had passed without food. As usual, Mahavir was walking the streets of Koshambi, but today he was near Dhanava's house in a different part of the city. As he turned the corner, he saw a woman in handcuffs, draped in rags, with her crudely shaven head and a pan of food in her hand. Now, Chandanbala, and this is another thing of Shravaks or Shravikas. You know, we take vows, and one of the vows that we take is Yatithi Samvibhag. That means we feed people who come to our house. So, you know, whether it is a guest or whether it is a sadhu or sadhvi, Yatithi in this case refers to a sadhu or sadhvi. In India, you know, they come quite regularly, and you always make food and you offer them gochri. And Chandanbala had taken this vow that she would not eat before she has fed somebody. So, and another thing, so this is a very comparable thing to Mahavir Swami. So when Mahavir Swami's Satya, with the 27 lives of Mahavir Swami start, his first vow is Naisar. That is when his life starts changing. Remember, and one thing, please let me put into context. Mahavir Swami was the grandson of Rishabdev Bhagwan in Rishabdev Bhagwan's time. And because he did pride at that time, because it was predicted that somebody asked Rishabdev Bhagwan that who will be a Tirthankar, and Rishabdev Bhagwan mentioned that Mahavir will be a Tirthankar. He felt pride, and in that pride, he had to take many, many births. So, in the vow of Naisar, one of the vows, and the reason why Mahavir's life transformed was he also made a vow that it would be good if I could feed somebody before I ate. He was a woodcutter, and he was in a jungle, and he just wished that he could feed somebody. And at that time, he met a group of monks who had lost their way, and he showed them the way out of the jungle. And in the process, he also fed the monks some food, or he shared his food. And in exchange, they gave him bodh, or they gave him knowledge, or they gave him basically a lecture. And that transformed Mahavir Swami's life. So this is a parallel to what Chandanbala's life was, that she had taken this vow of Yatithi Samvibhag, that I must offer my food to somebody who comes to my house. And she therefore was standing at the doorway. So as he turned the corner, he saw a woman in handcuffs, draped in rags, with a crudely shaven head and pan of food in her hand. Chandanbala was standing at the doorway. She was surprised to see Mahavir turn the corner towards her house. Suddenly, she had tears of joy in her house. Now, there is, you know, a lot of people say that, oh, because Mahavir Swami turned, she felt sad and she started to cry. And that was, and Vinod Bhai said it correctly, Mahavir Swami's intention would never be to hurt another soul. So it was that there was joy, or in that instant, maybe Mahavir Swami did not recognize that this was the person who I was waiting for, whatever the reasons were, but she had tears in her eyes. And you know, Sudharma was overcome with intense emotion. So this is a conversation in the book between Sudharma Swami, who was one of the Gandhars, and Gautam Swami, who was another Gandhar, who was a chief Gandhar, and Sudharma Swami was another Gandhar. These are all what we call disciples of Mahavir Swami. They were the prophets who would then give us the religion. So Sudharma was overcome with intense emotions. He had tears in his eyes. You are right, Gandhar Gautam. One might think that Chandanbala was crying because of her ordeal, or because she had nothing but dry lentils to offer Mahavir. However, Chandanbala is not the one who would shed tears over such miseries. She must have been tears of joy over encountering Mahavir Swami. Now, આપણે just put ourselves into the situation. આપણે આપણી ઘરે છે અત્યારે કોવિડની હિસાબે, we are stuck at home. There are people out there who obviously cannot leave their house because they are either vulnerable, or you know, they are elderly and they cannot get out. And a lot of communities, including Shri Channa Vidyapith, are doing great work by delivering meals in partnership with other organizations to deliver meals to the vulnerable. And this is what precisely, so this is also Yatiti Samvibhag, where you actually go and do, you give food to people who are less fortunate, who are in need at the time. That is also Yatiti Samvibhag. So, so this is what happened. So there were tears in her eyes. So Gandhar Sudharma, so Gautam Swami says, even at that young age, she must have had equanimity and balanced mind. Now, for Chandanbala to go through all this suffering, from being a princess, from losing her father, losing a mother, seeing a mother actually kill herself in front of her eyes. Now, can you imagine? Do not think that these are just stories. These are all life lessons to be learned from these stories. That, you know, in our lives, miseries come. At this moment, the whole world is suffering through COVID. People are losing their jobs, people are losing their businesses, people are suffering because of anxiety, of mental stress, whatever. But what helps in this time is prayer, belief in yourself, and belief in the possibility that one day we will be at the end of this. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is never doom and gloom. And one has to accept, one cannot fight this illness. One has to accept that it has come, and let me make the most of it or the best of it. You have two choices. You can sit at home and you can feel miserable, or you have another choice and you can do something positive. Whatever positive you plan to do or whatever you do, that's up to you. But there are so many things available. So please do not be disheartened. And this is what this story is. So there was no self-pity. Accepting life as it came is impossible without equanimity. Such a person would not be crying with self-pity at the door. She must be saying to herself, I've lost everything, even my friends and relatives. But I'm lucky to have a Yatithi come. And what a Yatithi, hey? You know, in the form of Sakshat Bhagwan himself, you know, to come to your doorway and to present himself, and you have the good fortune that you are able to feed him. It's just amazing.
Sandip, there's just one question that's come in.
Yeah.
Quite profound. So it says, I'll read the thing. It says, Mahavir Bhagwan had attained many different types of Gnan. He must have known about Chandanbala and the state she was in. At the same time, Mahavir Bhagwan must have also been aware of other souls who were in despair. So why not help the other souls? Why go to Chandanbala and not every other soul? Is it that Chandanbala was special, or was there another reason?
So Mahavir Swami's vow was taken. When he took the vow, I'm sure he took the vow in order to basically distinguish between his body and a soul. So a lot of people take these vows to stay in good bhav, but at the same time, try and suppress your desire for food, your desire for comfort, and all of that kind of thing. When he took this vow, he must have known that there is one person who is suffering. Now, you're right that Mahavir Swami probably knew there were lots of souls who were suffering, but, you know, he happened to be in Kosambi at that time, and he was wondering. So it was in that vicinity of that area where he realized that there would only be one person who would be able to satisfy this vow, and that is why he took this vow. And there was another reason, and I will come to it just now. The reason was that he knew who Chandanbala's soul was. He knew that he needed Chandanbala for his Chaturvid Sangh to head the Sadhvi Sangh. And there is a reason why he wanted Chandanbala to head the Sadhvi Sangh, because he knew that Chandanbala had that innate strength, innate capability, innate equanimity to be able to handle sadhvis. Remember that these are all souls that you are handling who come to you. They are all in different stages of development, and to handle 36,000 souls to handle their needs, their problems, their issues, because there would be issues. Remember, they are all moving forward on the path. They have not yet purified themselves. So he needed somebody like that. Now, when it comes to other souls, what Mahavir Swami did was that as soon as he achieved Keval Gnan, he could have said at that stage that, listen, I've achieved Keval Gnan, now it's time for me to go to moksha. So bye-bye, see you, Khuda Hafiz kind of thing. He did not do that. What he did was he spent 12 years giving sermons. And he gave sermons to so many people, and he encountered so many people, and he inspired so many people. And the whole idea was that by listening to him, by following his path. And another thing, Mahavir Swami, even when he's accepting the Gochri from Chandanbala, is equanimous. For him, it doesn't mean that there is a big sort of, for him, all souls are equal, and he has compassion for everyone. So he was not distinguishing because of her, but he knew that there was a connection, that this was going to happen, that in future, when I set up my Chaturvid Sangh, I'm going to need this. He knew that because he also foresaw what was happening in society. Yeah. So as soon as Mahavir Swami accepted the Gochri, of course, the news spread fast, and there is a huge, if you read the scriptures, and there is, by the way, a great amount of literature on Chandanbala in various things. There are lovely stavans as well. Unfortunately, I cannot play YouTube videos for you, and my voice is terrible, so I can't sing.
We will send the links to people later. So
yeah,
we'll
that's
send
fine.
the links.
But that, and there have been numerous plays, and because she has basically resonated very well with people, her sacrifice is what she went through, a very tragic story, but it ends up in such a lovely way. So anyway, Mahavir Swami accepted this, and of course Chandanbala's, according to thing, her shackles fell off. Now this could be symbolic. Her shackles fell off means she also realized that what she wanted in life, that the worldly life was not for her. So she, at the point when Mahavir Swami achieved Keval Gnan and he set up his Samvosaran, she approached him and she said, I want to take Diksha, and Mahavir Swami allowed her to take Diksha, and she became the head of the Sadhvi Sangh, and she was the first Sadhvi to be appointed. But so, all the King Shetanik and Queen Mrigavati, by the way, King Shetanik's wife, Queen Mrigavati, was Chandanbala's Masi, right? And Mrigavati is also a Sati out of the 16 Satis that I mentioned. And she achieved Keval Gnan. I'm going to explain to you just now what happened to Mrigavati. So anyway, she, Mrigavati then took Chandanbala, and she basically said that, look, I will come. And Chandanbala said, no, I will not come and stay with you. I want to, do my own penances. And she did her own penances. And as I said, when Mahavir Swami started establishing the Sangh, she became the first Sadhvis to do that. So the reason why she was appointed was that, so Sudharma Swami says, what a life. Aja Channa has endured enormous challenges which would have shaped her strong personality. Remember, when we go through challenges, we become stronger. Her ordeals at such tender age have sensitized her to injustice, pain, and cruelty. She feels the agony of a woman trapped in the wheel of misfortune. No wonder she is so involved and active in looking after the interests and comfort of every Sadhvi in her group. She understands human psychology so well, she's able to make everyone smile and feel special. So, this is another story. So, Mrigavati was also a Sadhvi. Now, remember, her aunt also took Diksha and became a Sadhvi. So, she was part of it. Now, Chandanbala was the head. So, Mrigavati did not have that ego. Her Masi did not have that ego, because there was never that case. It was, as we said, all souls are equal, but everybody's capability or everybody's progress is different. And we are in no position to judge ke aa manas saru che ne aa manas kharab che, because we do not know what their internal capabilities are, what struggles they are going through internally, and therefore it is wrong to pass judgments. And this is precisely what was happening. Mrigavati had so advanced, and she actually achieved Keval Gnan while Chandanbala was still a Sadhviji. So, you know, she could, so there was this incident which happened. So Mrigavati was meditating even after sunset. And normally what happens is after sunset, you know, all the sadhvis go back to their area where they sleep, to their quarters. And Mrigavati unfortunately still continued meditating. So when Sadhvi Mrigavati returned, Ajah Channa politely reminded her that she had transgressed the Sangh's rules. Excuse me. Mrigavati gently asked for a pardon and went to a room for meditation. At night, while Ajah Channa was fast asleep in her room, Sadhvi Mrigavati was still meditating next door. Suddenly, she was startled. Being close to achieving enlightenment, Mrigavati, though in her own room, was able to see that a poisonous snake had entered Ajah Channa's room. Mrigavati rushed there and awoke Ajah Channa. Ajah Channa immediately realized that Mrigavati had reached the Arhat stage. How else could Mrigavati have had the sixth sense to see a snake was coming into my room? And this is what happened. So she basically asked, Chandanbala asked Mrigavati forgiveness because she did not realize how elevated a soul Mrigavati was. So whenever men in their ignorance and arrogance will try to oppress women, Ajah Channa will inspire women of the world to assert and trust themselves. Basically, this story talks about several things. It talks about self-reliance. It talks about self-confidence. It talks about forbearance. It talks about jealousy, because Mullah was feeling jealous. It talks about ability to forgive. And it talks moreover about the immense compassion that Mahavir Swami had. I mean, that compassion knew no bounds. It was just amazing compassion. Now, if there are any final questions, we can take them and then we can close the evening. Sandip bhai.
Okay, so no sort of questions coming up at the moment, but one observation on my side when I read that was, from some of the other sadhus, there was still a little bit of doubt, similar to a management, a corporate of, you know, you're appointing this person, does she have the ability? But clearly she had the ability of a very, very top leader. And there's a real resonance with that, as well as, you know, at the head of Virayatan as well. You just want to put a little bit of light on that?
Yes, so I mentioned that a lot of Jain Sanghs, even in current times, the women sadhvis are, or the female sadhvis are not given that equal opportunity, and there is still a lot of hardship that the sadhvis go through. But one exception to the rule is, of course, Virayatan. Now, what happened in the case of Acharya Sri Channa ji, and it's very coincidence, it's amazing that she was named Chandana after Chandanbala by her guru, and her guru was Upadhyay Sri Amar Muni Ji Maharaj. And Amar Muni Ji Maharaj, from a young age, Chandanbala, and I do not know if any of you have seen the film Never Before. If you have not, I think it's available on YouTube. I would Google it and watch it, please, if you can, because it's amazing. It talks about her own Acharya Channaji's childhood. From childhood, Acharya Channaji was like Chandanbala. She was extremely loving. She was extremely compassionate. She was an amazing girl. But she also had this immense ability. And when Gurudev Amar Muniji Maharaj met her father, and he said that, look, I think I want to, you know, take your child, Acharya Channaji immediately accepted it. And later on, she obviously moved up the ranks and she became an Acharya. Now, Acharya, as I explained to you in my Naukar Mantra presentation, is a head of an organization who basically organizes that organization. and he appointed as Acharya, and he said, and she actually said that I want to go to the land of Mahavir. And she was the first female Acharya to be appointed in the history of Jain sadhus and sadhvis. And also she was allowed to go to Bihar. At that time, Bihar was regarded as quite a scary territory because there was lots of dacoits and lots of shooting and lots of robberies and stuff happening. And she ventured in there to establish Virayat, and the rest is history. So if you are interested, please watch Never Before. It is available on YouTube. It's a film based on Acharya Chandanji's life. Very moving, very touching. I remember when I first saw it at a rough film screening in presence of Acharya Shri herself. And I think there were about 7 of us in the room at Bharat Bhai's house, and we all had tears in our eyes. So it's really moving.
Sandip Bhai, one question. Just, I think if I can ask Raj Mehta to ask that question. Raj, if you unmute and ask that question.
Hi, Sandip Bhai. Sandip Bhai, was there a chain of succession for head of sadhvis like there were for acharyas?
Sorry, I didn't understand that, Raj.
Was there a chain of succession for head of sadhvis like there were for acharyas?
So there always is a chain of succession, because what you have is that you would have an acharya, and then the acharya themselves would therefore nominate a head once they are gone. So they would nominate a head in their place, and that is how the Sangh would continue.
Excellent.
Does that answer your question?
No, I was referring to head of sadhvis.
Yeah. So whether it is sadhvis or sadhus, they still have to follow the same procedure, in the sense that there is always somebody to head the Sangh.
Okay.
And,
All right,
and they would
Sandip
always,
Bhai?
yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I stopped you there halfway. If we stop the screen share on your computer.
Yeah.
And that was a fantastic talk. And I'd like everyone actually to unmute and give our very own Sandip Bhai a huge round of applause. Thank you so much, Sandip Bhai. Really, really good. Now I'm going to ask Kajal Ben to end the evening with a Manglik. So Kajal Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Jai Shilendra, everyone. Sandip Bhai, do we have time for a small prayer before Manglik?
Oh yeah, we do. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah,
prayers are always wonderful, Kajal. So yeah.
So yeah, those of you who know the prayer, you can all join in at your own homes. So I'll be singing Bhavna Din Raat. भावना दिन रात मेरी सब सुखी संसार हो, सत्य संयमशील का व्यवहार बारंबार हो, धर्म के विस्तार से संसार का उद्धार हो, पाप का परिहार हो और पुण्य का संचार हो, ज्ञान की सद्ज्योत से अज्ञानता का नाश हो, धर्म के सद्चरण से शांति का वास हो, शांति सुख आनंद का प्रत्येक घर में वास हो, वीरवाणी पर सभी संसार का विश्वास हो, रोग भय और शोक होवे दूर है परमात्मा, ज्योति से परिपूर्ण होवे सब जगत की आत्मा, चत्तारी मंगलम अरहंता मंगलम, Siddha Mangalam, Sahu Mangalam, Kevali Panato Dhammo Mangalam, Chattari Loguttama, Arihanta Loguttama, Siddha Loguttama, Sahu Loguttama, Kevali Panato Dhammo Loguttamo, Chattari Saranam Pavachami, Arihante Saranam Pavachami, Sitte Sharanam Pavachami, Sahu Sharanam Pavachami, Kevali Pannatam Dhammam Sharanam Pavachami. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kajalben. So that's nearly it for this evening. There is a poll which has come up. We'll be grateful if you can fill that out and send that off. Next week, the talk is going to be by Vinod Bhai Kapashi on chapter 4 of Walk With Me. So please pass the message around to friends, family, to join up in our Friday evening virtual talks. And we hope you are finding these very, very good and very useful. In the meantime, wishing everyone a great week ahead. And Jai Jinendra, stay safe. Thank you very much and good night.